2 years ago, I was working a full-time job. I was about to be put on furlough, although I didn't quite know that yet. And I was genuinely feeling super unfulfilled. If we fast forward to today, I now run my very own multiple six-figure business. I am the most fulfilled that I've ever felt. And I'm also just genuinely incredibly satisfied with where my life has ended up. So I thought now would be a good time to reflect on the main habits that I actually incorporated into my lifestyle, which allowed me to get to this point fairly quickly too. So if that sounds of interest to you, then please carry on listening. And also if you like content like this, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button because I upload new videos every single week. So let's start with the first habit. Also, if you're new here, you may not know this already. Hi, by the way, my name's Jade, so nice to meet you. You may not know this already, but I like to share my tips and tricks with like a unique perspective or with some kind of hack or something that you may not have heard before. So don't worry if I start to say a tip and you're like, oh, I've heard this 1,000 times, because I'm willing to bet that whilst you've heard this tip, maybe you've not heard it in the way that I'm going to explain. I've really bigged myself up here, so let's hope I can deliver. So the first tip is all around self-development, but more specifically consuming self-development content. Now I know, you've heard someone say this before, right? Oh, you should read this book and then your life will change. You've heard it all before. But the thing is that when you are new to self-development, or even if you're not new to it, you may end up going down a rabbit hole of reading all these books, listening to all these podcasts, and actually realizing that your life has not changed in any way as a result of you consuming that content. And let me tell you why. Reading self-development books, listening to podcasts all about bettering yourself, consuming that type of content is not the entire task. And we are led to believe that if we do these things, our life will change, when actually that's only half of what you need to do in order for all of that content to actually impact your life in any way. So if we take books, for example, I read non-fiction books. They're usually self-help books. Sometimes they are like marketing books as well. I'll put a list of my favorite ones in the description to this video in case you want to read anything that I've read. I read for 30 minutes every morning, Monday through to Friday, because I know that on the weekends, I don't want to read in the morning. Like, I just don't want to read non-fiction, right? So not only have I picked up a habit which allows me to consume that content on a regular basis, but I've been realistic and I've set my expectations to only read these types of books 5 days a week on the days of the week that I know I'll be more likely to actually want to read those books. Now, where the true hack comes in here is I have a separate notebook. I'll actually go get it. Where is it? I'll go get it. Okay, so I have this notebook that I bought from Papier. Again, I'll put a link to everything I refer to in the description for this box. But it's just a notebook. It says my thoughts exactly, and then I wrote like things I've learned. I like to customize stationery, okay? Just don't judge me. Regardless, it's just a plain notebook, like it's literally just like this, right? But I use it for a very specific purpose. Within this notebook, I will keep notes of anything that I read in these self-development books that I want to apply to my life or that has really stuck with me. Let me give you an example. I hope I've got a good one now. This is not rehearsed, this part, so let's see. Okay, so I've got a really good one. This is a note that I wrote when I was reading the 12-week year. And I even write down like the findings I took from this passage that I wrote and the page it was on as well, so that in the future, if I want to reread the entire section, I know where to do that, right? Okay, so I wrote down, when we start to envision our goal, we ask the question how too quickly. And this forces us to reduce our goal to something which seems more realistic. So this is basically saying that if you've got a big goal that you want to achieve, we immediately say, okay, but how are we going to achieve that? And then because we ask that question too soon, it makes us want to reduce our goal to something that seems way more achievable. That has stuck with me from that book for so long. Like, I bring this up in my coaching calls to my clients, to my friends, to my family quite often. And one of the reasons why that stuck with me and I'm able to remember it so frequently was because I wrote it down. I didn't just read it in the book and thought, oh, that's a good little nugget of information, and then carried on reading. I read it, I stopped, I wrote that down, and then I continued reading. And the result is that I often have multiple notebooks that just have pages and pages full of my favorite, most substantial things that I've ever read in a self-development book. And as a result of that, I remember those things a lot easier because I've actually taken the time to write them down. But also, I have cliff notes. Are they called cliff notes? Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that word outside before, like out loud, cliff notes. But I've just got all these notes. I've literally got my favorite parts from every self-development book kept in one place, so that at any point I can open this up and reread my favorite, most impactful things that I've ever come across. And that really helps that knowledge stick in my brain. Another thing that I do is I mark down when I I've written something that I need to apply. So not everything you'll read in a self-development book you'll want to apply to your life. And I think believing that you need to apply everything is just going to put you off, right? Instead, you can just make note of the key things that you do want to apply to your life. Maybe there's a way of working or a habit or a way of managing your relationships that you now want to try in real life. Write that down in your notebook, mark it so that you know it's something that you're going to apply, and challenge yourself to actually apply it to your life for a few months. And at the end of that period, you can reflect on it and see how it actually impacted your life. Few more things that I do in regards to like self-development content. I've got so many things. I could actually do a whole video on this, so let me know if you want that, but let me just run through them because I've got other stuff to talk about. Another thing that I recommend doing is listening to audio content. So whether that's podcasts or audible books, whatever it may be, even if you're such a fan of actually reading and turning pages and all that stuff, I still recommend having some form of audio content to consume, because it's great to listen to when you're cleaning your flat, when you're working out, when you're doing kind of mundane things, which allow you to focus on what you're listening to whilst also achieving little errands and things that you need to do in your life. So I listen to a lot of audio content. I actually specifically listen to some motivational audio books in the morning, so whilst I'm getting ready, and then also in the evening, so whilst I'm doing like my skincare and my evening routine. I have specific audible books that I listen to that I'll link below during that time, because it either sets me up for the day or it like winds me down and gets me ready for bed. Okay, so final tip. When I was reading this book, I read something that actually changed the game for me when it came to how I consumed this content. The book says that you do not need to read the entirety of a book in order to feel like you've actually gained something from it. So if you're anything like me, you probably tell yourself like, okay, well, I've started this book, like I really need to finish it. And then if you don't like the book, if you're not vibing with the writing style or whatever it may be, you stop reading it because you don't enjoy reading the book. You don't move on to a new book. You just kind of keep that book there and you're like, oh, I'll read it tomorrow, or I'll read it next week or next month. And it just stays there. And during that time, if you were honest with yourself and just said, look, I'm not going to read this book anymore, like I don't like it, you would have been able to move on and actually find another book that you genuinely like. And you probably could have read it within that time frame, whilst instead you were just kind of staring at this book that you don't want to read and letting it intimidate you and stop you from reading anything else. If you're not vibing with a book or a podcast or an audible, whatever, stop listening to it, stop reading it. No one's forcing you to consume the entire thing. Okay, so the next habit which changed my life is visualization. And what I'm referring to here is basically the process of visualizing your goals, or maybe even how you want your day to pan out before you actually go ahead and achieve those goals or get started with your day. Now, fun fact, I actually used to do this as like a child and I didn't realize that's what it was. So I wasn't reading like self-development books at the age of 8, right? But I used to dance as a hobby, and I used to perform at shows and do exams and stuff like that. And I used to visualize myself on stage performing the routines, and I would do that every single night before bed. I would run through every single dance routine. If anyone's watching this who used to go to my dance school, they're gonna be like, oh my god, Jade, what, you loser. But I used to visualize every single dance routine before I went to bed. That was like my habit before I went to bed. And I think that had such a huge impact, not only on my ability to remember the choreography, like that definitely helped with that, but it also had such a huge impact to my confidence when I then got on stage and performed the routine. And I did this from like as young as I can remember, all the way until I stopped dancing. So when I was in my early 20s, I would used to do this. And I'm not saying I was an amazing dancer, like I wasn't professional, clearly, because I'm here right now, but I was all right. And I feel like the reason why I was able to get to that level and I did really well in my exams was because of visualization. So how I actually use this habit in this day and age as a grown-ass woman is I tend to visualize how I want my next day to pan out before I go to bed. I'm laughing because I know some people listening to this being like, what? But that's what I do. Even if I've got a day of chilling, like I would just visualize myself fully disconnecting from work and having a really lovely day, not thinking about anything and just lying on the couch. There's something so powerful about setting your intentions for your goals, your days, whatever it is, and truly visualizing yourself living that life. It's really hard for us to become open to various opportunities that help us reach our goals when we do not believe that we can genuinely reach those goals. And one of the ways that we can get over that barrier and actually reach a stage where we truly believe that whatever it is we're trying to achieve is completely within our reach is by visualizing ourselves achieving that goal. right? When we can actually see ourselves, close our eyes, only takes a couple minutes, really see ourselves, imagine ourselves achieving that goal, what it feels like, what smells are in the air when it's happening, like what you look like in that context, all of it, as detailed as you can possibly get. That is usually when you truly start to believe that whatever you're striving for, you can totally reach, right? So I visualize every single day, and I don't know if this is embarrassing me admitting it, but I've said it on camera now, so it's out there. Another habit that I have been doing for the past couple of years, which has massively changed my life, is I have been broadening but not changing my circle of friends and family. Now, there is like this type of content that's shared online, and look, I'm just gonna say it's not for me. It's obviously for some people, but it's not for me. And you might have seen it before. It's when you see those posts like on Instagram, what say things like, cut off anyone out of your life who is not on the same journey as you, or like, if you're trying to become an entrepreneur, then like only be friends with entrepreneur, like all this really harsh, extreme advice. And I do not believe it in any way, shape or form. I actually find it really jarring. I've had people give me this advice like face to face, and I find it really jarring when people just straight up say like, ditch your friends and your family. If they're not doing the same thing that you're doing, then they're not worth your time. And I find it so problematic in so many ways. One of those ways being that we're assuming that just because one of your friends isn't on the same path that you are, that their path is less than yours and they don't have anything of value to add to your life. Like, I just find the whole thing wild. Regardless, I do see the power in broadening your circle and putting yourself in environments and situations where you are exposed to people who are further along in their journey than you are. I do think that's incredibly powerful. And that doesn't always have to be like networking, because I know how much everyone hates networking, right? It doesn't always mean that you've got to go to these events by yourself and like introduce yourself to the CEO of various companies. I'm not saying you've got to do that, although if you can do that, then that's amazing. I'm also saying that you can do things like joining online communities or online virtual events. I'm also saying that you can just broaden your circle by starting to follow or consume content from someone who's further along in their journey than you. It doesn't have to be like you walking into a room and becoming best friends with everyone in that room, right? But what's so powerful about broadening your circle in this way is that when you're exposed to people who are achieving incredible things, it really makes you open your eyes as to what's truly possible. And before I started this journey, I didn't think it'd be possible for me to build my business to the point that it's at in the amount of time that I did it. I genuinely would have thought this would have taken me 10 years. I think I always believed I could have done it, but I genuinely thought it would take a lot longer. The only reason why I realized that I could actually scale at a quicker rate was because I was starting to meet people who were scaling at an incredible rate, right? And whilst I wasn't saying, okay, well, I want to do exactly what they're doing, it did make me think like, hold on, there's more I could be doing here. And the reason why I'm not doing more is because I have this limiting belief that it's not possible for me to achieve certain things because I've just never seen or never known anyone who's achieved it, right? So that's why broadening your circle and getting exposed to these people is so powerful. And by no means have I nailed this yet. Like, there are people who are doing the most incredible things in the world, and I would love to meet them or just be around them at some point, because I think I'll have another huge mindset shift where I'll be like, wait, I could be doing even more than what I'm doing now, right? I still know that I'm holding myself back for some stuff, and I still know that there's a level of success that I think is unattainable. And I truly believe that once I start to meet people who are at that level, that limiting belief will go away. Right, so next habit is I started to force myself to take breaks. Now, I had like a run-in with burnout, like actual burnout, not just I was tired, like I was really burnt out. And I talk about it in one of my older videos, which I'll link to up here if I can find it. But I had a run-in with burnout in like summer 2021 because my channel was starting to pick up, but I was running like other small businesses on the side and I was working full-time. So, you know, it's safe to say that I was doing too much and I massively burnt out. And from that point on, I started to enforce this habit of forcing myself to take breaks. Now, I'm gonna bring up that content that I mentioned previously that I really don't like, because I often see content that's related to this habit too. So, you know, when you see posts like on Instagram, what say things like turn off your phone and cancel all your plans and just work really hard for 6 to 12 months and see what you can achieve. Again, do not subscribe to that whole idea. The reason why is because when you put your head down and you work really, really hard on something for an extended period of time without taking a break, I'm willing to bet that whilst you may have reached your goal or become closer to reaching your goal, I actually think that you could have reached your goal quicker if you took breaks during that time. Here's why. When you take breaks and you allow yourself to look up from whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, whether it be a goal at work or your business or a fitness goal, whatever that might be, right? When you actually take the time to look up and take a break and experience the world for a day or so, a lot of the time you either become more motivated to reach your goals. When you get back into things, you actually end up making bigger strides towards reaching that goal. Or you realize that there are things that you could be doing that could make the process of reaching your goal easier. You might come up with new ideas that will help you reach your goals. You might find new workouts that's going to help you reach your goal. You might find new recipes that will make eating healthier both cheaper and easier for you to do, or more enjoyable. And if you do not take a break, you might miss all of that stuff. You might not see all of these new ideas or new opportunities or new ways to reach your goal because you haven't taken the time to actually let yourself rest for a second. So the second I started forcing myself to take breaks, because yes, I do need to be forced. It's quite difficult for me anyway. And I feel like there's probably people listening to this who can relate. It's quite difficult sometimes to take breaks, especially when you feel like you've got a momentum going. But every single time I've taken a break, I have had some form of epiphany where I've been like, wait, I could be doing something better. Or have I tried this? Or, oh my God, this is a way for me to reach my goal quicker, right? And that is why taking a break is another one of those habits that really helped to change my life. Okay, so my final habit is that I forced myself, and this is such a work in progress, I've not nailed this yet, but I've been trying to incorporate long-term thinking rather than short-term thinking. What I mean here is a lot of the time, when we make decisions, we make them based on short-term thinking. We decide to do something because it is the best, most beneficial thing for us to do for our either immediate or near immediate self. So for example, going to the gym. If I'm tired and achy one morning, I might decide not to go because I'm not feeling it, I'm feeling achy, and this way I can sleep a little bit more and I can get more rest, right? That is going to benefit current Jade. Short-term Jade is going to be like, great, I can go back to bed and I'm going to feel nice and rested for the rest of the day. Long-term Jade is going to be really annoyed at myself because I've not reached my fitness goals, or I'm not as fit as I could have been because I keep on making the short-term decision to not go to the gym. Right? Another example of this. I am obviously a YouTuber, I don't know if you've noticed, but you're currently watching me on YouTube. So I think I could class myself as a YouTuber, and sometimes it's really tempted for me not to film YouTube videos. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't bother to get ready for the day. I can't bother to set everything up. Like, maybe I'll just skip this session and I'll film next week. So that is a decision for short-term Jade, because little insider, it's not even a secret, but something to know about me is I batch my content. So at any given time, I normally have between 1 to 2 weeks worth of YouTube videos already scheduled on my channel, right? Now, because of that, it's really easy for me to make the short-term decision to not film, because I'll be like, well, this way I can spend time doing something else. I've already got multiple videos scheduled and ready to go out, so I don't actually need to film today. So I'll make the short-term decision to not film. Long-term Jade will get annoyed at myself though, because the only reason why I'm able to have weeks worth of content scheduled in advance is because I sit down and I film on a weekly basis and I keep on replenishing that content. If I keep on missing filming sessions, then guess what? I run out of content. And the next time I film, I'm doing it because I have to film, because otherwise I'm going to end up missing an upload. I am not ashamed to tell you guys that I fall victim to that level of short-term thinking probably on a daily basis. I almost did it today. I almost didn't film today because I was like, oh, I've got a few videos scheduled. I don't really need to film. Like, I literally almost did it today. I do it all the time, and I'm willing to bet that you do it all the time too. Now, in order for all of us to stop doing that, one of the main things we need to do is we need to be able to identify when we're making a short-term decision. Because when we realize when we're making a short-term decision and we can call ourselves out for it, it becomes a lot easier for us to make the conscious decision to switch to longer term thinking and actually decide to do the thing that's going to benefit our future self. So in order for us to do that, we need to start being aware of when we're making short-term decisions. Most of the time they're like the lazier decisions, so they're kind of easy to spot. But I challenge you after this video to start asking yourself, every time you make a decision, ask yourself, is this to benefit short-term me or long-term me? And if the answer is short-term me, I really encourage you to switch it and actually make the decision that's going to benefit your future self. Okay, so if any of those things that I just mentioned mentioned relate to you, then please let me know in the comments. I really want to hear from you. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend watching this video. It's all about my 5 proven ways to change your life in 2023. Thank you so much for watching this video. I can't wait to see you in my next one.